All right. Finally, we have reached the last section of our Roman PowerPoint. I bet you're saying to yourself, I did not realize Miss Naylor was so long-winded. Holy cow. Please get on with it. So, fall of Rome. How does it happen? Well, we obviously are not, this is one of the this is a topic that is one of the most popular for historians, and we are barely going to scratch the surface of it. Remember, this is a survey course. We will not be getting in depth in the fall of Rome, um, but I'll try to do the best I can. Despite many theories designed to explain this collapse, the reality is that there's a ton of factors that bring an end to Roman power. And this, by the way, is going back to key concept 2.2 and the fall of the classical empires. So it's a pretty important piece of things. So, internal dissension, best represented by the 26 Beric emperors, which were a series of emperors who tore Rome apart. There were tons of civil wars during this time, tons of assassinations. There were 14 emperors in 33 years. Not the best for stability, right? And this period lasted from 235 to 84. One of the reasons that things were also going crazy is because of epidemics that were passed along the Silk Road. As we'll learn in chapter 12, trade is sweet. However, not only trade passes along trade routes, other things that pass along trade routes are good, like music and religion. Other parts are bad, like plagues and death. So this destroyed the population and hurt trade and hurt stability because stability is really hard to maintain when you have people passing away all the time. Okay, and there was a large disenfranchised population. Rome was really amazing, but it wasn't amazing for everyone who lived in Rome. There were a lot of people in Rome who did not feel the positive effects of the Roman Empire. This is true for every empire in history and even countries today, and people would argue even for America. This disenfranchised populations included the poor, slaves, and women. Life in Rome wasn't better for them. It was even at times worse than it could have been in their under previous rulers. And Rome relied heavily on slaves, which stifled the innovation later on and allowed other empires to surpass them in technology, and their slave rebellions hurt stability, like the rebellion of Spartacus. Um, Epidemics in the Han and Roman empires, you can see population really fell off in the later classical era. And we have this data because the Romans and the Chinese, just as an aside, took careful census data. So what do you do with an empire that's too big to manage, which was another reason that the Roman Empire was falling. It was just too big, and there were all kinds of rebellions going on here because of something we'll see in just a second. You divide it. You divide it, and then it was divided by Diocletian, and then the capital was moved by Constantine over to what is now known as Istanbul, but was known as Byzantium, and it was a Greek colony, and then now is Constantinople. So you move your capital why over to the east because this is like a backwater, right? These cities had just started. This was kind of where it was at. So, and then you go further and you divide the empire into four regions. This is the tetrarchs. So they kind of control these different areas, and the goal is for stability there. So here's Diocletian. That's how you spell his name. This is not Diocletian, that's Constantine. Diocletian divided the empire, so there were co-emperors and then dual lieutenants who were the tetrarchs in four sections. He also tried to redo the currency, do budget reform so the Romans would stop spending more than they have, stop running deficits. None of this was incredibly successful. Civil war followed his death, and with a strong emperor gone, there was just no one to lead them. So Constantine emerged victorious out of that. He moved the capital and then named it after himself, Constantinople. And this was the most urban part of the empire. This was like where it was at to be a Roman. Like if you ever get a chance to go to Turkey, you'll see all of these different Roman cities that were there already. And Constantine, by the way, was the first Christian emperor. Why were things so crazy over there? Well, these Germanic tribes were making things pretty crazy for the Romans. They were constantly invading and rebelling. And why were these Germanic tribes invading? Because the Huns were pushing from Central Asia, just like the Xiongnu of Central Asia in the case of the Han, and just like the White Huns in the case of the Guptas. These Huns were moving in and pushing the Goths, the Ostrogoths, the Vandals, etc., into the Angles and the Saxon, yada yada yada, into Rome, which eventually led to their fall. So externally, Rome was having some problems with these people. So although Constantine attempted to reunify Rome, his choice of capital shows that the western half of the empire was in decline because of Germanic invasions. The Visigoths placed pressure on the decaying Roman state, and these pressures continued to increase. Finally, in 476, the last Germanic emperor, Romulus Augustus, was overthrown by the German general Odovacar. And I don't know if I'm saying that right. So, what happened because of that? What happened? Well, there was a total collapse of urban societies in the West. This is the most prominent collapse of urban societies that we see in the classical world. The imperial economy totally disintegrated. People began using these Roman buildings like for building materials, and they became more self-sufficient. And there was localized feudal rule. So this turns into the feudal state. And you'll notice here, this is still imperial Rome, right? This is segmented. So we will be coming back to Western Europe in period 3, but for now, we're completed with this PowerPoint. You've made this arduous journey. We are done. We have gotten to the fall of Rome. Please don't forget to do the listening checks that go along with these.